In this episode, I'm going to give you the biggest gift in life, and I don't say that lightly. Today, we're going to talk about something that has the power to literally change your professional and personal life. How your thoughts become your results. I'm going to show you how to master one of the most powerful tools you already possess, and that is your beautiful mind. This isn't fluff. It's backed by neuroscience and psychology. It's a practice that I teach my clients, and it's really simple, clean, and practical. I'm Negar, mentor, advisor, coach to management consultants, and welcome to the consulting game, where we talk about everything to do with consulting. I remember commuting to work for 3 to 4 hours a day. Can you imagine that? And that was for about 4 to 5 days a week, depending. This was pre-COVID. I just had my second baby, and during my maternity leave, we'd moved outside of the city. And I honestly couldn't have been further from my client site. But I loved the client. I loved the work we were doing, but they weren't willing to bend any rules. And I couldn't get more than one day from home. And it was all very much on a trial basis. As I said, I love the work. I love the client, but the juggle at home, the 5 a.m. wake ups, the getting home late to two cranky babies, that was really difficult. But actually, I really liked the commute. It kind of gave me that downtime to myself and to listen to loads of books and podcasts. I was heading culture and change programs for our clients, and I was reading all these books about human behavior change, culture change, change management. But I remember one day I was listening to a podcast, and it was called The Life Coach School. And in that moment, everything changed for me. She said, "Your thoughts create your results." I was like, what? That can't be true. Like, could it honestly be that simple? If I just manage my thoughts, my results would change. And it's all based on a model, which I'll explain to you in a minute. But let me just give you an example that comes up actually a lot with my clients. I think this will help make it click. You're in a client meeting and your presentation is ready. You've got your talking points, the graphics are brilliant, everything is solid. And then you go into that client meeting and the client is completely unimpressed. They don't like it and they tell you it needs more work, right? What happens? What happens next typically? If you're like many, your mind might go into, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as others. I always mess up. I'm a fraud. I've been found out. Why can't I get this? I'm just not as good as other consultants. You typically might feel deflated, unmotivated. You start second guessing yourself. And sometimes you might procrastinate and do something else rather than try and make that particular presentation for the client better. Now, this is where I want you to listen to me. What the client said is not causing the issues, right? You thinking a certain way, you feeling deflated, and you, I suppose, taking inaction. How you're thinking about it is causing the pain and discomfort for you. Some people listening to this podcast would say, well, if a client said that to me, I wouldn't think that way. I would just think, I'm going to fix this and it'd be much better next time. So this is what I want to focus on. I want to tell you that the thoughts you're thinking, the feelings you're feeling, the thought spiral you're having, that's optional. Like, isn't that amazing? This tool that I'm going to explain to you, the model, you can use it to kind of pause, examine, redirect your thinking, and you can create an entirely different outcome. It all comes down to this model, which I did not invent. It's based on neuroscience and psychology. It comes up everywhere in the literature, and it's how the world works. And I want to tell you this quote. It's by Viktor Frankl. I'm going to get that name wrong. Between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies growth and freedom. Like, that's a lovely quote, right? But like, how do you actually practically do this? That's what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to slow down that space between stimulus and response so that you can choose a different direction and grow. Okay, let's get into the model. The acronym for the model is STEAR, STEAR. There are things that happen in the world that we can't control. This is the first part of the model called situation, S for situation. You cannot control what your client says to you. You can't control your boss's behavior. You can't control a flight cancellation or bad weather. You can't control your past, the things that have already happened. These are all situations. Situations are the only thing we can't control. The rest of the model, so the T, which stands for thoughts, the E, which stands for emotions, the A, which stands for action, and the R, which stands for results. And I'll go through those, but all of those you can control. They are all within your control. Like, I get excited talking about this, right? I just think I love being intentional and having control. Things that happen externally, I can't control those. But everything else, how I think about them, how I feel, what I do, and the results I create, I can actually control those. So T is for thought. So something happens in the world and we have a sentence in our brain about it. Your brain interprets it a certain way. So you might think, I'm not as good as others. I just can't do this. I need to quit, whatever it might be. Those thoughts create emotions or feelings in our body. That might be deflated, unmotivated, sad, upset, anxious, any of those. And it's those emotions that drive all your actions. We all know emotional intelligence is really important. Some of us may not know why. The reason emotional intelligence is so important is because if you can control your emotions and you can be, I suppose, intelligent with your emotions and choose them intentionally, then you can control your actions. So your emotions drive all of your actions. So if you're feeling deflated and unmotivated, do you think you're going to do your best work? Probably not. As I said, your emotions, your feelings, they drive all of your actions. Okay, it drives your behavior. So you might avoid reworking that presentation. There might be inaction. So a lot of my clients will have anxiety, so they'll go into freeze mode and they find it really difficult to get started on the feedback. And then your actions create your results. So your results are the reality that you create, the outcome that you create. So the final product doesn't improve if you're feeling unmotivated, if you're not taking the right actions. You're not going to produce a good product. So your thoughts become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your thoughts become your results. We think that if someone says to us, this is not good enough, that our reaction is outside of our control, and that's just the way it is, and we should spiral, and we should talk negatively to ourselves, and we should go for a walk and cry and get a cup of tea, right? But your reaction is everything in that present moment, and it's within your control. Now, wait for it. Here's a mic drop insight for you. There's a direct link between your thoughts and your results. Your thoughts become your results. Your thoughts become your reality. So if the issue isn't the situation and what happens outside of us that we can't control, shouldn't we be spending some time understanding what we're thinking? Seriously, shouldn't we? Yes, absolutely. But nobody teaches us this. Nobody pulls us aside in school and says, you know what? You have so much more control over how you feel in your life, the results that you get, what you create for yourself. And here's the blueprint to do it. Isn't it madness that no one tells you this? But I'm telling you this today. Because our thoughts are sentences in our mind, they're optional. Okay, change your thoughts and you can change everything else. And I'm going to reiterate this. This is based on research, literature, neuroscience, human behavior. And this is an area that I have had years and years of experience in my corporate job and now in my own business. So I know what I'm talking about here. By understanding how your brain works and how you can get the results you want, you literally learn to manage your mind instead of letting it manage you. Now, most of you listening to this are consultants in high pressured environments. Most of you are client facing. And I know a lot of consultants now are very thin on the ground. They're thinly stretched. They have to achieve a lot with a lot less. So the feedback is constant. Expectations are high, both from the client, but also from your organization. And you see your peers, everyone is a high performer. And you have to show up even when you're not confident and it wobbles and you just have to keep going. And this is the toolkit that I teach my clients. Imagine having that toolkit to be able to bounce back from critical feedback, say yes to stretch opportunities without spiraling into self doubt. This was a big one for me. I used to hide from the big leading transformation, culture, and change programs. I used to hide from those because they would really scare me. And honestly, this model that I'm taking you through today revealed my mind to me, showed me I had more control than I thought, and allowed me to change it over time. And this is the edge that I want to give you. It puts you in that driver's seat. It puts you in the driver's seat of what you're thinking because it's so important. It creates all of your results. Instead of just reacting, you actually respond intentionally. So I know you're asking yourself, what causes me to think a certain way? And all of you are saying, how do I change it right now? I'm glad you asked. And here's how to start. You need to witness your own thinking, and it's a practice. AI can't do this for you. Right? You have to do this yourself. So this is a good skill to build. It's not going to be replaced by AI. You have to create the space between you and your mind. You have to become a watcher of your mind. The way that I tell my clients to do that is to do a thought download. Okay. I do this every day for 5 minutes in the morning, right? When I was in my corporate job, I used to do it in the morning and the evening, 5 minutes, and that's it. Some clients do it for 1 minute, but I just write down everything that I'm thinking. Once you start noticing what you're thinking, it will be very interesting. It will become really clear when you see your thinking just there on a piece of paper. And it makes it very clear how you have the results that you do have, especially when you take it through that model that I went through, the STEAR model. Quick recap of the STEAR model. Something happens in the world, a situation outside of your control. So situations create a thought. That thought creates an emotion or feeling. And then that feeling or emotion drives all of your actions. And depending on the actions that you take or inaction that you take, you drive your results. So when you get conscious about your mind, it's amazing how many unconscious negative thoughts are going through there. It's absolute madness. They're old ways of thinking. They're similar to habits, right? Habitual thinking. You've created neural pathways that have become habits. If someone gives me any sort of critical feedback, then I punish myself. I think I'm not good enough. I make it mean all sorts of things about me. When someone gives me positive feedback, then I can be happy with my performance, but not until then. So that's all habitual thinking. That's the neural pathways we've built in our brain over time. And there's a way to change those. But the first step is we need to become aware of these. We need to become a watcher of our mind, and then we can change it. I actually discourage my clients because we do this work with my clients. I have a whole course on this where we go through this, and they quickly want to rush to, how do I change this? But you have to sit in that awareness for a little while. Anyone who's done any sort of change management knows that the first step to any change is awareness. Okay. You have to become aware of what are you thinking? How do you feel when you think that way? And what do you do or what do you not do? Do you, when you're unmotivated, do you go and get 10 cups of tea, go for a walk, check your emails and pings, and not focus on the deep work that you're supposed to be doing? That awareness is key. And I encourage my clients to sit there for a couple of weeks. I'm telling you now, not doing this work denies you of all of your power, because you're letting the world, situations, things that are external to you dictate your results, your feelings, your thoughts, and your actions. We are at a time as consultants and also as humans where we need to become very conscious of our thinking and redirect it so that we can get the results that we desire in our careers, for our clients, in our lives. It's very easy to let external situations and circumstances impact us as individuals and our work for our clients. What a lot of others teach in this space is that you should just change your actions, right? So if you get negative feedback or critical feedback in any way, focus on what can you do to overcome it so you can just move forward, which is important. But this is where my coaching is different. I bet you've done that before and it feels like a struggle, right? When you take positive action and you're not aware of all that negative thought that's happening and all those negative feelings that are happening, it's going to feel like a struggle. The compassion needs to come out. The awareness needs to come out. When you start by changing what you're thinking and the emotions, it drives the actions more easily. Now, let me bring this home for you in an example. I'm sure a lot of you know someone who may have got cancer diagnosis from smoking. Have you ever noticed that a lot of the time, after years of struggle trying to give up smoking, they're able to give it up no problem after getting a diagnosis like that? Something shifts in their brain. Hence, it drives a different feeling in their body, and that feeling drives a different action. Okay, giving up. And it's much easier than before. It's not as much of a struggle. I see this with my clients all of the time. When we pick out those thoughts and feelings that are driving the actions, and when they bring awareness to it, compassion to it, the change is so much easier and it's long lasting. And I want you to know this. Just knowing this model, knowing that this is how the world works and this is how human behavior works, is going to change so much for you. Okay. It's changed so much for my clients and it changed so much for me. I had a client, I want to give you an example. I had a client who came to me and she procrastinated. She was so stressed, loads of negative self-talk. Why can't I just be more efficient like everyone else? She was so stressed in work because everything happened last minute. So we did a model together and this is what we came up with. So I want to bring it to life for you. So the situation was, at the time, a client deliverable was due on Thursday. Okay. And her thought, the way she was habitually thinking about this, any kind of big thing that had to be done, this will take time and it's hard. The emotion was unmotivated. It's very hard to take positive action when you're unmotivated. So her actions were inaction, procrastination, checking her phone, go to chat to someone, make a coffee, do smaller tasks rather than tackling it. Check her phone again, check Instagram, check the pings, check the emails. So anything to avoid that deliverable. And it would always get left to the last minute. So the result she was creating for herself was she was just making everything harder than it needed to be. As you can imagine, she would talk to herself negatively. She got really annoyed with herself. She would watch other people and she just felt they were just so much more productive and better with their time. But when we focused on that compassion, we said, you know what? We're not going to beat ourselves up for it. This is just a habit you've gotten into. This is just human behavior. I explained the model to her. This is what's happening in your brain. Everything changed. Everybody has a good reason for the things they do or don't do. And that understanding is key because it brings about compassion for yourself rather than just talking to yourself negatively. That's the beauty of this model. You're revealing yourself to yourself so that you can start to build a better relationship with yourself. The most important relationship in your life is with yourself, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Obviously, my client wanted to change this immediately. She did not want to procrastinate. She wanted to be really efficient with her time, and she just wanted to jump to the change. But she had to observe it for the first couple of weeks. She had to observe it with curiosity, become non-judgmental, and understand her behavior and the actions she was taking. Because that building of compassion will make the change overall easier. Now, we did change this. I have a whole course on balance and time management, which is amazing. And we were able to move to a different thought model, but she took that space to become aware of what was happening. You can't change your thinking until you understand it. Now, I know you want me to tell you how to change that thought immediately. I know you want that right now, but be patient, my little grasshoppers. I want you to really take this in and do the practice that I told you to do. Your mind is complicated, and change will only come about once there is awareness and understanding first. So I'm going to close off with a few key things. Remember, your thoughts create your results. It's not magic, it's mindset. It's not fluff. It's the most powerful tool you can have. If this episode landed with you, share it with a colleague that it might help. Start a conversation in the comments. Practice the STEAR model and become a watcher of your mind. Honestly, your future self will thank you. I'll see you in the next consulting game.